I first heard of Omori through a friend who said it was his favorite game of 2020. Now if you know me, I'm always out to seek the hottest games, and if you guys know 2020, this was the year of must-haves. FIFA, Among Us, basketball, Fall Guys. I get fucking winded just talking about how many great games came out this year. So when this guy says that Omori is his game of 2020, you know I had to check it out. When I saw the cutesy art with the Steam tag of psychological horror, I immediately thought Omori would be another one of those things that just relies on shock factor in order to scare players out of a cutesy atmosphere. But I was pleased to find out it wasn't that. It was much more than just another shock factor horror game, which is actually a lot more refreshing than I would have expected. But the game left enough of an impact on me that I'm making a video about it. So good job, Omori, I guess. So if you don't do any bonus content, I want to say an average playthrough of Omori lasts around 21 hours. My playthrough of the game itself lasted around 25 the first time I played through it. And after playing through all of that, I came to a pretty heartfelt consensus. It was mediocre. I didn't dislike the game, but it didn't sit right with me when I finished it. It wasn't my favorite game of 2020, by the way, if you're wondering. And I promise this isn't just me trying to be some sort of contrarian. I know how well received the game is. Everyone I know who plays the game loves it. The word masterpiece is thrown around like a fucking football. Like, this game won an award. Like a real-ass award. At a real-ass award show. Just to have some sort of research before starting this video, I talked to other people about Omori just to kind of get an idea of why people enjoy the game so much. So here are some of those responses. Omori is very good at subverting player expectations in a way that makes sense. Omori is kind of like Evangelion. You'll like it more if you're sad. Omori be like, please play 25 hours of misery, it's fun, I swear. Now, it should be noted the person responsible for the third quote didn't actually play the game, but the first two guys did and they loved it, so there's that. But you know, it's a pretty frustrating feeling when you're the only one who doesn't get something. Everybody else is having fun with this, so why can't I? Omori sat in the back of my mind for months, and during that time I was able to deconstruct its story and really dissect why I didn't like it as much as everyone else. In order to explain why Omori is flawed, it's probably best to just spoil the entire game. Like, I'm just gonna recap this story, and it all starts with... The game begins in an area called White Space. I mean, it kinda speaks for itself. It's a pretty isolating space that's white. You know, you can go on your computer, some tissues, sketchbook, little kitty cat, this big light bulb. Yeah, that's about it. When you leave Whitespace, however, you enter this childlike dream world where you meet these three kids named Kel, Hiro, and Aubrey, who serve as your party members in the game. Shortly after meeting these three, you meet two more people. There's this kid with a flower crown named Basil, and your sister, Marie. After a game of hide and seek, you go to Basil's house and look at a scrapbook until you find an extra picture that is apparently reflective of a horrible event. Because of this, Basil's eyes turn blood red and the game shortly cuts. Ooh, mysterious. This game is kind of mysterious now. Huh. You then return into your white space where, if you look in your sketchbook, you see this dark figure at the end, which is only referred to throughout the game as something. Then you stab yourself. After all that mess, you realize it was all a dream, and now you're in the real world. In this part of the game, you no longer play as Omori. Rather, you play as someone named Sunny. You're about to move out of your house in 3 days, and the entire game takes place within a set amount of time. You're hungry, so you go downstairs, but something appears, which is represented as a fear of heights. After you conquer your fear of heights, you get a bite to eat, go to sleep, wake up, throw up, and go back to sleep. I actually think the prologue is the most well-executed part of the game. It establishes the tone of the game perfectly while giving enough vagueness towards everything to really make you curious about what's happening next. It serves as a brilliant hook to make you play the rest of the game, so how does the game follow this up? You go back into the dream world, and you find out Basil's missing. So you and your party have to go look for him. Like some sort of search party. Also, there's these computer keys you find throughout the game that spell out a special word in a Hangman-style fashion. You begin your search by going to space by climbing this ladder since you conquered your fear of heights already, IRL. When you explore space, you eventually get to this space pirate guy who's going through a breakup after his girlfriend, Princess Sweetheart, broke up with him. One of his henchmen tells you the only way his mood will improve is if you find some mixtape in a landfill. So the main goal in this part is to grab this mixtape for the space pirate who's going through a breakup so he'll feel better. Once you get the mixtape, you go back to the space pirate and play it for him to get over his relationship. But when he listens to it, he gets upset instead and fights you. I mean, this part of the game is fine, but the space pirate presents a larger problem I have with the dream parts of the game, and that's his character. You'll see this a lot more in the game, but a lot of the dream characters have this off-putting nature to them. For a game that's rated mature, the dream parts of this game are incredibly rose-tinted, to a fault. The idea with these dream areas in the game is that they're meant to be this whimsical area in order to suppress any bad thoughts you have that were shown in the prologue. But a lot of these characters feel like they were written by theater kids. For example, this space pirate guy is supposed to be someone who can't get over their ex, but his character feels needlessly exaggerated whenever he does anything, and it doesn't come off as quirky or anything, he just feels like a man-child. It's one thing if he was provoked by his henchmen to act really immature in order to have some sort of contrast to his character, but these guys don't do anything. They only exist for this part, and they kind of just off after that. So what you're left with is just an asshole. Like, I get you broke up with your ex, but you better... I just want to elaborate. Post-production on Space Pirate? Yeah, I said he was written by, like, a theater kid, so I want to elaborate on that. When I say he was written by a theater kid, I just mean more so just to hit the humor of the game. The humor of the game is kind of... it's not funny. And let me elaborate on that. So, when I say it's not funny, I more so mean whenever they try to do something funny, they go, oh, we should make this over the top then. Because if something needs to be funny, it needs to be as exaggerated as possible. And you see that time and time throughout the game, in both the dream and real life segments. The humor is not this game's strong suit. I think the only joke that's an exception is maybe that pizza delivery joke where it was kind of delivered in a deadpan fashion from what I can remember. I have to review the footage. But it was delivered in a deadpan fashion and it still gave a silly punchline, which I find to be okay. And I'm sure there's more exceptions to what I'm talking about because there's just so much content in this game. But yeah, as far as humor goes, I just don't think it fits well with Space Pirate's character is supposed to be this depressed, angry person trying to get over their breakup. Yeah, I don't like Space Pirate. The exaggerating writing works a little better with Princess Sweetheart, as you'll see later in the game. But even then, the writing, the comedy, any writing, and well, the dream parts in the game are mostly centered on being funny. So when it's not funny, it's really unenjoyable for me. I personally really dislike Space Pirate's character, but that could just be the PTSD of theater class kicking in. After you battle this Space Pirate guy, you eventually find this barn and... Snap back to reality! Between the 3 dream segments you engage in this game though, this was definitely the best one since it was riding off the intrigue of the prologue, and the dream world is still pretty fresh at that point. After the dream world, you wake up back in the real world, and there's not much to say other than that the real life segments are infinitely better than the dream segments in the game. It really takes that mature rating of the game and gives it so much life. Any problems I had with the dream world are just immediately eliminated. The characters are written with actual depth. Everything feels much more grounded and it's just riddled with charm. This is also where you find the real-life counterparts to the people in your dream world. We don't meet Hero yet, but we still meet Kel, and he's still the jolly guy we remember. However, Aubrey is rebellious. During this time, we as the player find out Marie actually died. We don't know why she died, but it gives us context for why everyone acts the way they do, like why Sunny is a shut-in, or why Aubrey is a punk. Basil looks like he took it the worst. I wonder if this has to do anything about why Basil is missing in the dream world. I hope we get to learn more about this. Anyway, once we're done with this real life segment, we finally go back home and overcome a fear of spiders. Alright, now we're back in the dream world and we have to go through this forest, which ties into the whole fear of spiders thing. After about 10 minutes in the forest, we completely ignore the whole fear of spiders and just go directly into a castle. This part of the game is noticeably longer than previous parts, and it loses its staying power about halfway through. The boss in this area is Princess Sweetheart, which you might remember as the girl who left Space Pirate's bum ass. Similar to how Space Pirate has henchmen, Princess Sweetheart has these little citizens that are kind of like onions, I forget the name, but they're these numb-minded comrades who are pretty entertaining in the first half. They're certainly more entertaining than the henchmen, but they lose their energy pretty fast because you can only do so much with characters who are brain dead. Like, you have 4 segments in the castle, and pretty much the joke in these 4 segments is that, oh, these onion guys are dumb. And then in between those segments, you have a running gag that loses its energy because of how fatigued you are in this area. You just want it to be over. And once you leave the castle, you have to do more stuff that you really don't want to do because it's all just filler. The game actually kind of teases you with a small part in a gallery that gives you virtually no information about the story's lore. It's basically just there to tell you, oh, you want this? You want more information on the game's lore? Here you go. It's a 30-second part where we tell you virtually nothing you don't know already. Okay. Now go back to playing this part of the game that doesn't progress the story at all. And play for like another hour, hour and a half, however the fuck long it takes. You could just skip this entire section of the game and still retain the same amount of information you did from like 2 to 3 hours ago. I'm practically just waiting to stab myself while this game keeps nagging on with this dream world. Anyways, you defeat Sweetheart. Good job. Now we progress the story by going to this library, where we recollect memories of the past. I actually like the touch of blanking out people's names, so it actually makes you pay attention to what you're reading. Hey, maybe this will tell us more about the relationship between Sunny, Basil, and Marie. Cause you know, last time we saw Basil in real life, he was looking pretty bad. You know, this was a lot more effective the first time they did this, but we're about 8 to 10 hours into the game, and we essentially still have the same amount of information as we did in the beginning, except knowing that, like, Marie died. You could argue that Basil might have developed, but be honest, what do you actually know about Basil at this point in the game? Anyways, we go back into the real world, which is really great by the way. I recommend going outside more. There's not much to say that I haven't said already. It's really well done, the characters again are more interesting, we finally see Hero again after almost drowning. Also, we overcome our fear of drowning. Isn't this all neat? Okay, time to go back into the dream world. So, we go back to the dream world, and our party is missing. No Kel, no Hero, no Aubrey, and certainly no Basil. We have a moment where we are alone with Marie, which is easily the best part of any part of the dream space. It finally takes a moment to not just be this sugar-filled hyperworld, and it actually gives us something to kind of savor. It gives us a moment to develop Sunny's character by having him perceive Marie as this caring older sibling, and the fact we already know she's dead makes this moment just that much more touching. By the way, this is the water part, which ties into the whole fear of drowning thing. Anyways, we get on with this underwater area where we enter this casino and retrieve our friends from this evil shark who put all our friends under contracts. Then we defeat him, and I know I keep mentioning that the dream world is filler, but with Space Pirate and Sweetheart, they at least have this subplot where they act wacky and shit as a toxic relationship. This guy doesn't contribute to anything. I'm so over this dream shit. Oh, what's that? There's still one more part? Oh boy! This is the worst part of the game. It's not even close. I hate this part. Wow, I hate this guy. Alright, let me give a summary of the story here. Sweetheart cut Space Pirate for herself, so now she's trying to build a clone of herself. She approaches these slime girls who invent things. They exist, and they technically contribute something relating to Sweetheart's arc, and you know, I'm sure there's someone doing mental gymnastics right now trying to tell me that the reason all of these characters act so over the top is because we can gather that Omori had a tragic event at a younger age, so he's kind of mentally stunted so that everything is still viewed in the eyes of someone who never grew up. But personally, it's not a good enough reason as to why the dream world feels like it was written by a 12-year-old. Anyways, in the game we have a currency called clams, and the slime girls use clams as commission money to feed Humphrey. But Sweetheart doesn't pay, so she gets murked instead. So now we fight these slime girls, and we beat them. And then they die. Then we fight Humphrey immediately after the slime girls, and his boss fight takes a minimum of around 10 minutes. Did Humphrey really have to be a boss? Was this really that? The answer is no, by the way. No allegory could make me care about this stupid fucking whale. I am so tired of this dream world at this point, and I just want it to end. Thankfully it does, and we can finally finish this fucking game. After Humphrey dies, we have all the computer keys we need to complete the hangman, which leads us to Black Space. Now, before I get into Black Space, let me ask a question. What do we know about Sonny? We're around 18 hours into the game at this point, so what do we know about him? He's quiet, he's reclusive after his sister died, he also sees his older sister as a great role model. And he has a problem with Basil that we don't really know about yet, you know? 9/10 into the game. But if you had to describe his character, yeah, he's basically just a quiet person. And what about Basil? This guy. What do we actually know about him? He's basically the guy we know as being suppressed from Sonny's memory because of a horrible event, and being a little bitch who can't even swim. Marie is literally deceased and has more developed than both of these characters based on memories we have of her. And also because of how heavily implied it is that she committed suicide by hanging. So that gives some intrigue to her character. We don't really know much about these guys, but I digress. Let's just go into Black Space.
Say it.
We wake up and engage in the real world again, where the gang gets together one more time. You go into your treehouse and reminisce about your past. And from a first playthrough, this was the best part of the game. It actually almost made me cry when I was playing it. Just having that mix of nostalgia and moving on from the loss of someone as significant to a friend group as Marie, it was just so touching. During this point, I was genuinely convinced that Marie hung herself. But the game had it in somehow.
Ting tang, walla walla bing bang. Ting tang, walla walla bang bang. Ting tang, walla walla bing bang. Ting tang, walla walla bang bang.
Yeah, it gets pretty dark. You actually find out that through the eyes of Basil, that there is a broken violin on the bottom of the stairs. When you look up, you see Marie and Sonny fighting. It's at this point you realize Sonny pushed Marie down a flight of stairs. It's at this point Basil comes up with a plan to disguise Marie's death as a hanging, which is where the image of something originates from. After finding this out as a player, Sonny wakes up and goes to Basil's room, where you meet Basil. You have a moment where he talks to you and develops more as a character here than in the first 9/10 of the game. Then you fight him and he stabs you in the eye. Then you go through a bunch of memories of the past that you saw from the scrapbook. One of these include being gifted a violin by your friends that you use with Marie for a recital. By the way, you killed Marie on the day of the recital. After a moment of confronting your friends in your mind, you finally fight the final boss, which is Omori. In a climactic final moment for the game, you defeat Omori by completing the recital with Marie, which conquers the demon in your head. Yay! Then you wake up in the hospital, where you go into Basil's room where your friends are, and you have something you need to tell them. Wasn't that a heartfelt ending? Okay, let me give you a recap of the game through a graph. Okay, let me recap Omori's story. So the x-axis here is length, and the y-axis here is stuff that is interesting. So we start off in white space, that's pretty interesting. Then we get into this dream world we don't really know about. Then, you know, they have the twist, not a twist, but the hook. Then you have the real life segment, so that's pretty interesting. We're doing pretty good so far. But then we get to the dream world. We don't really care about space pirates, so we're just gonna drop that a little bit. And then we go back in the real life, and that's really cool. We meet Aubrey. We find out our sister died, so that's cool. Then we go back to the dream world. That kind of blows, and it keeps like just getting, the novelty kind of starts wearing off. Then you fight the boss, which is, you know, that's fine. And then you go back to real life, and it's cool, and we meet Hero, and it keeps getting better. And then we go back to the ocean world, and this really blows. So this is where we fight the shark. Then Humphrey just kind of put that down there. And then we go to Black Space, and that gets pretty interesting. Then we do some real life segments. That's pretty interesting, right? Then we find out about the truth. Then that's this is the ending. So that's how I would kind of sum up Omori's game right here. Yeah, the pacing of Omori kind of blows. Okay, let me just talk about. Here's what we have in the ending. 24 photos of what happened that night, 19 black space rooms, though only a certain amount is needed to progress the story, 5 flashbacks, 2 plot twists, 1 animated musical cutscene, and more! A lot more actually now that I'm thinking about it. I know I haven't mentioned this yet, but I'm sure a lot of you know that Omori took around 6 years to make after it reached its goal on Kickstarter and then some. The problem is that the creator, Omori, didn't really give updates on the game in order to keep it as much a secret as possible. But the problem with radio silence is that there's a very large wall of communication between the donor and the creator, and I feel like that development is pretty reflective of Omori's story. Think about it. For a majority of the game, you don't know anything about Sunny's character development until it's basically just released all at once. Now, everything in the ending is actually really well executed. The problem is that everything is at the ending. Where was this the entire game? Why is it all at the end instead of pacing it out in the shitty dream sections? Like, remember that black hole in Sweetheart's castle where you go in and it's just fucking pointless? Why not use one of those 19 black space rooms to fill in that little spot? Like, there's one that would have been perfect, and it involves you finding Basil in this distorted version of the first room you enter outside of white space, and your party members just absolutely fucking mark him with a baseball bat. It's actually pretty spooky, and kind of gives some development towards Sunny's character. Like, now we would know that he resents Basil, and it would also be a good way to foreshadow what black space would be like without spoiling the entire thing. People aren't going to be let down if they're given samples of something. Let us have some samples, damn it, because it really comes at the detriment of the ending being too congested. There was just too much going on. I wanted to cry, I wanted to feel emotional, but I was still thinking about all this. It didn't have time to be digested. The part that made me want to make this video in the first place though is Marie's death. You know how I mentioned there were 2 plot twists in the ending? Both of them were in those 24 photos of Marie dying and being hung. Because before this moment, we were pretty much told that Marie had hung herself. But then, when looking through these pictures, we find plot twist number 1, Sunny pushed Marie down the stairs which killed her. That's pretty shocking on its own. Then we have another plot twist in the same breath because Sunny and Basil disguised Marie's death as a hanging, which is even more shocking. In fact, it was so shocking that this was the emotional climax of the game for me instead of the part that was probably intended to be the emotional climax. The ending is already pretty compact, but the fucking dam broke with this. It creates this rapid character development that by the time we understand what's going on, the game's already finishing up. By the time you truly realize what Sunny's demons are, you're conquering them. By the time you understand why Basil's a fucking mess, you're just supposed to confront him like we didn't just learn this. By the time you actually understand what happened with Marie, the game's trying to make you come to terms with 2 plot twists in the same breath. Now I know it's just gonna be said. Just because it all makes sense in retrospect doesn't automatically mean it's presented good. Omori sold me on the story. It didn't sell me on the experience. I don't dislike anything in the ending of Omori, but it could be presented better. I think it had everything it needed to tell a masterpiece. It just needed to figure out how to be paced properly. And it starts with this. First off, you would need to tell some of this way earlier in this story, aka not the ending. Now I've come up with 2 ways to kind of restructure how this part could be executed in the game. The first method is the proper pace out black space. Take these 24 pictures and scatter them throughout the game. You already kind of have this in the prologue, but it's so brief that you can't really tell what it is in a standard playthrough. The average human reaction time is a quarter second, so give the picture in that prologue that much time to exist. Then, when you get to the barn after the space world, you could use some of those more obscure pictures that don't really give an idea of what's going on, but it still tells you something's not right. Then, when you get to the real life section where Aubrey says Marie is dead, you use that to your advantage. After you fall in the big black hole in your dream world, you give it to him. Boom! Sunny pushed Marie down the stairs. Huh? What? Sunny killed Marie? Something ain't adding up here. So later when you get to this part, you're in Sunny's shoes instead of your party members, cause you know this whole suicide thing ain't adding up as a player. Then, when you have the sleepover at Basil's house, you find complete the memory, and it's even stronger as a plot twist because you had time to build it up instead of having it all shoved in your face at once. Isn't that just neat? So when you go through the story, you actually have these hooks that are interesting, and you get rewarded for going through these dumbass dream sections with subplots that don't even matter. Now my second method is a little bit more devious. When you get to the barn after Space Pirate, just spoil the entire thing. Just tell, yeah, you pushed her down the stairs, you hung her, yeah, just tell it all. First off, everything in the game has context now. We would actually be pretty much in the same position of knowledge as Sunny for the rest of the game, so his character development wouldn't come from the actual event, but from how the event has impacted Sunny's view on things, both in his mind and in real life. Because yes, Sunny makes way more sense as a character on the second playthrough. The problem with this is that it's not the first playthrough. The story isn't about Marie's death, it's about the impact of her death. So just getting the whole, out of the way, yeah, that gives so much more room for everything else to just build up. develop. Also, bringing back the scene real quick because both methods apply equally here. I know I already talked about this is my favorite part of the game, but actually I just want to talk about how much of a waste this scene is because of how detached we are from Sunny here this late in the game. This would have been absolutely incredible suspense if we just knew Sunny murked Marie, but no, we just gotta be out of the loop here. Like, come on. We are completely disconnected from our main character for so much of the game, and for just this to be so late, it hurts me. I don't know, there's not much else for me to say here. I don't think I talked about the art, so let me just say that I liked that. It was colorful and cool. The gameplay was a JRPG, or it was inspired by them, so there's not much to say. The idea of rock, paper, scissors as a battle system was okay, but I didn't really use it to its advantage. I just kind of had this pattern down that I use. The music, I'm not getting into that. I don't really like video game soundtracks unless it's like Grand Theft Auto themes, but that's another topic for I don't even know when. Nothing can stop me. I know there's an alternate route in the game. No, I did not play it. The pitch of, oh, it's only the dream sections of Omori is, no, I'm not playing it. Actually, in the awards ceremony when Omori won an awardee, Omocat mentioned making more projects in the future, which I would love to see. I would be in line for it, maybe, if I don't forget about it by the time the game comes out. So Omocat, if you're watching this video, here's some things I would recommend for your next game's story. Number 1, more killer. Less filler. Even if that game is like 3 hours long, it would be much better than having a 21-hour game that had me looking like this for around half of it. You don't have to make it bare bones that only tells the story, but any content that doesn't contribute directly to the story should be bonus content, not filler. If you need a reference on how to do this right, just look at the real life sections of your game. Number 2. Pace your story. This might be more applicable to a work ethic, but have some appetizers before the main course. Give me some time to digest all this stuff. Now, 2 recommendations may not sound like a lot, because it's only 2, but this can be significant to improving the writing for your future projects. Yeah, I think that's all I want to talk about. Okay. Bye-bye.
I just assumed it was because Omori is a lanky little bitch. I'm not wrong, he's a fucking pussy. He looks like one too. I'd bully the shit out of him if he was real. Complete fucking bozo. Like if his mom died, I'd be fucking saying hashtag Packwatch to his fucking face. Fuck is he gonna do? You know, yeah. Oh, you feel bad how you're fucking killing your sister? Good. Fuck you, bozo. Yee ass fucking like haircut. Hit the gym once in your fucking life. Stick man of a fucking human being. Fucking hate him. I hate Omori so much. Makes you want to fucking strangle someone.